My daughter told me I smell like disinfectant and shouldn't be around professional people. My name is Janet Drummond, and I'm 59 years old. For 35 years, I've worked as a janitor at Memorial Hospital in Chicago. I've cleaned floors, emptied trash cans, sanitized operating rooms at 3 a.m. I've worn my blue uniform to family dinners, carried the smell of bleach on my hands, scrubbed toilets that doctors wouldn't even look at. My daughter Kimberly is a doctor at the same hospital. She's 33, brilliant, successful. She walks past me in the hallways like I'm invisible. Her husband Ryan is a surgeon, 31 years old, Asian American, talented, ambitious. Together they have my grandson Elijah, 3 years old, beautiful, perfect. I've seen him exactly twice, both times in photos on social media that Kimberly posts for everyone except me. What Kimberly doesn't know is simple. While she was building her medical career, I was building something else. For 30 years, I've been Memorial Hospital's largest anonymous donor, $11.5 million in contributions. The pediatric wing she works in, I funded the construction. The cancer center named after an anonymous benefactor, I built it in memory of my husband Thomas. The scholarship that paid for her medical school, that was me. The research grants that launched Ryan's surgical career, $360,000 over 3 years, all me. And in 2 weeks, at Memorial Hospital's 50th anniversary donor recognition gala, Dr. Patricia Henderson is going to announce my name to 300 people, including my daughter and her husband. The janitor they're too embarrassed to acknowledge is about to become the donor they've been thanking in their speeches for years. But here's what I didn't expect. The revelation that was supposed to finally make my daughter see me, respect me, acknowledge me, is going to destroy what little relationship we have left. Because Kimberly's going to ask the one question I can't answer. If you had $11.5 million to give away, Mom, why couldn't you take time off work when Dad was dying? Let me take you back to where this story really begins. Not with the disrespect, not with the embarrassment, but with the choice I made 35 years ago that set everything in motion. I started working at Memorial Hospital in 1990. I was 24 years old, just had baby Kimberly, needed a job with benefits. Thomas was teaching high school history, making $32,000 a year. We were broke, living paycheck to paycheck, scared. My grandmother died that same year and left me something unexpected. 3 rental properties on the south side. Old buildings, nothing fancy, but they were paid off. Thomas said, "Janet, this is our chance. We can sell them, get out of debt, breathe a little." But I saw something different. I saw opportunity. I saw a way to build something that would matter. So I kept the properties, started fixing them up myself, learning plumbing, electrical work, repairs, the same skills I was using at the hospital during the day, I used on those buildings at night. Thomas thought I was crazy. "You're working yourself to death," he'd say. But I couldn't explain the drive I felt, the need to prove that a black woman from the South Side could build an empire. By 1995, I owned 6 properties. By 2012, the rental income was good, really good, but I didn't spend it on us. I invested it, grew it, turned it into something bigger, and then I started giving it away. Anonymous donations to Memorial Hospital. Small at first, $10,000 here, $25,000 there, but it grew, every year, larger amounts. By 2010, I donated over $2 million. Thomas asked me once, "Why anonymous? Why not take credit?" And I told him the truth, because I want people to see the work, not the worker. I want the money to speak louder than my uniform. But that wasn't the whole truth. The real truth was simpler and darker. I wanted to prove I mattered more than what people saw, more than the janitor scrubbing their floors. I wanted to be important, even if no one knew it was me. But importance came with a price. Every hour I spent managing properties was an hour away from Kimberly. Every double shift I worked to fund donations was a night Thomas put our daughter to bed alone. Every investment meeting, every property inspection, every anonymous check I wrote was time I didn't spend being a mother, being a wife, being present. Kimberly was 8 years old when she asked Thomas, "Why doesn't Mommy come to my school plays?" Thomas told her, "Your mother is working hard to give you a better life." And he believed it. We both did. We believed that building wealth, creating legacy, funding the future was worth the sacrifice of the present. By the time Kimberly was in high school, I'd become a stranger in my own home. I'd see her maybe an hour a day. Thomas was the one who helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, drove her to activities. He was the parent. I was the provider. And I told myself, that was enough. That my daughter would understand when she was older, that she'd appreciate the empire I was building for her. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was most wrong about thinking money could substitute for presence, that donations could replace relationship, that legacy could compensate for love. In 2018, when Kimberly was in her final year of medical school, Thomas got sick, colon cancer, stage 2. The doctors said if we caught it early, treated it aggressively, he had a 90% chance of beating it. But aggressive treatment meant time. Time off work, time away from properties, time that would interrupt the donation schedule I'd maintained for 23 years. I told Thomas we'd start treatment in a few months, after I closed on 2 new properties, after I made the annual donation to the hospital's capital campaign, after I finished the commitments I'd made. Thomas said okay. He trusted me. He always trusted me, and that trust killed him. By the time we started treatment 8 months later, the cancer was stage 4, untreatable, terminal. We had 2 years. 2 years of watching my husband die from a disease we could have beaten if I'd just stopped working long enough to save him. Kimberly was 28 when her father died. She'd just finished her residency, just started her career at Memorial Hospital, just married Ryan. And she spent those 2 years watching her father deteriorate while I worked double shifts. I told myself I had to keep working, had to maintain the donations, had to keep the empire running. But the truth was simpler. I was running from guilt, from the reality that I'd chosen properties over my husband's life. Thomas died 5 years ago, in 2020. His last words to me were, "Take care of Kimberly. Don't let her make the same mistakes." I promised I would, but I'd already lost her. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew I'd chosen work over her father, chose strangers over family, chose legacy over love. And now, in 2 weeks, she's going to find out exactly how much I chose to give away while her father died. $11.5 million to a hospital. Nothing could save the man she loved most. The disrespect didn't start immediately after Thomas died. For the first year, Kimberly was still civil, distant but civil. She'd call once a month, short conversations about nothing important. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine, sweetheart." "How's work?" "Busy." "I have to go." 5 minutes? Maybe 10. Enough to check the box labeled "dutiful daughter" without actually connecting. The real shift came when she met Ryan. That was 4 years ago, at a medical conference in Boston. He was presenting research on pediatric surgical techniques. Kimberly was in the audience. They connected over their shared ambition, their drive to be the best, their understanding that success required sacrifice. The same sacrifices I'd made, though neither of them saw the parallel. Ryan came from a different world. His parents were both physicians, successful, comfortable. They lived in a suburb with good schools and country club memberships. They drove luxury cars and took vacations to Europe. To them, working class meant failure. Manual labor meant you hadn't tried hard enough. And a janitor? That was someone who'd given up entirely. I met Ryan for the first time at their engagement party 3 years ago, small gathering, maybe 40 people, at a restaurant in downtown Chicago. Kimberly had debated inviting me. I know, because my sister Patricia told me. She's worried you'll embarrass her, Patricia said. Worried you'll show up in your work uniform smelling like cleaning supplies. I didn't wear my uniform. I bought a nice dress, did my hair, showed up looking like any other proud mother, but it didn't matter. The damage was already done in Kimberly's mind. I wasn't a doctor, wasn't a professional, wasn't someone who belonged in Ryan's world. I was the janitor, and that's all I'd ever be to them. Ryan shook my hand that night with the grip you give strangers. Polite, distant, forgettable. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Drummond. Not Mom or even Janet, just the formal distance of someone who's already decided you don't matter. Throughout the dinner, he'd glance at me with this expression. Not quite disgust, but close. Discomfort mixed with pity. The look you give someone who tried their best but ended up cleaning floors for a living. I overheard him talking to his parents later that evening. His mother Victoria, elegant in pearls and designer clothes, asking about Kimberly's family. Her father passed away, unfortunately, Ryan said, and her mother works at Memorial Hospital. Oh, in what department? Victoria asked. Long pause. Then, facilities management. Facilities management. That's what he called it. Not janitor, not maintenance worker, facilities management. Like adding professional words could erase the reality that I scrubbed toilets for a living. His father Harold just nodded, understanding passing between them. They knew what facilities management meant. They knew their son was marrying down. The wedding was 2 years ago. Kimberly asked me to contribute $15,000, said it quietly, almost apologetically. I know it's a lot, Mom, but Ryan's parents are covering most of it and I want to contribute something too. I wrote the check that day. Didn't tell her I'd donated $800,000 to the hospital that same month. Didn't tell her the scholarship that paid for her medical school was actually my money. Didn't tell her anything. I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner, just immediate family and wedding party, Kimberly explained. I was immediate family. I was her only living parent. But I wasn't the kind of family they wanted at the table with Ryan's surgeon father and physician mother. I might use the wrong fork, might tell stories about mopping floors, might remind everyone that despite Kimberly's doctor title, she came from working-class roots. At the wedding itself, I sat in the back, not the front row where mothers traditionally sit, but the back, near my sister Patricia and her son Junior. During the reception, I watched Ryan's family laugh and toast and celebrate. Watched Kimberly in her white dress, radiant, happy, surrounded by people who mattered. I took exactly 3 photos with her. 3 photos in 6 hours. And in each one, she's standing stiff, smile forced, counting the seconds until she could move on to guests who actually belonged. The final speech of the night was from Ryan's father, Harold. He stood at the microphone, champagne glass raised, talking about how proud he was to welcome Kimberly into their family. She's brilliant, dedicated, and shares our commitment to excellence in medicine, he said. We couldn't ask for a better daughter-in-law. Not a single mention of me. Not a word about the mother who raised her, who worked myself to exhaustion so she could attend college, who funded her medical school without her knowing. I was erased from the narrative entirely. And Kimberly let it happen, smiled through the whole speech like she'd never had a mother at all. But the worst moment came at the end of the night. I approached Kimberly to say goodbye, to hug my daughter on her wedding day. She hugged me back, quick and perfunctory. As she pulled away, Ryan appeared beside her. "We should get going, babe," he said. Then to me, barely making eye contact, "Thanks for coming, Miss Drummond." Miss Drummond, not Mom, not even Janet. Miss Drummond, like I was a distant relative they'd invited out of obligation. And Kimberly didn't correct him. Didn't say, "That's my mother. Call her Janet." just nodded, took his arm, and walked away. I found out about Elijah's birth from Facebook. Kimberly posted a photo from the hospital. "Welcome to the world, Elijah Mitchell. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Born at 3:47 a.m. Mommy and Daddy are so in love. Born at Memorial Hospital. Born on the floor I clean every week. My grandson came into this world 3 floors above where I was emptying trash cans at 4 a.m. and nobody told me. I called Kimberly the next day, congratulated her, asked when I could visit. Oh, Mom, we're really overwhelmed right now. Maybe in a few weeks when things settle down." Those few weeks became months. The months became years. Elijah is 3 years old now. I've never held him, never babysat him, never been invited to a birthday party. Last Christmas, I saw them at the hospital. Kimberly was bringing Elijah to the pediatric wing for some event. He was wearing a little red sweater, holding her hand, chattering away. I was pushing my cleaning cart down the hallway. She saw me, made eye contact for a split second, then quickly guided Elijah in the opposite direction, down a different corridor, away from the janitor who happened to be his grandmother. I stood there in that hallway, watching my daughter flee from me while holding my grandson's hand, and I understood something. This wasn't about being embarrassed by my job. This was about being embarrassed by me. My existence reminded Kimberly of where she came from. Reminded her that despite her doctor title and surgeon husband and beautiful son, she was still the daughter of a woman who cleaned toilets. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Patricia Henderson called me into her office. Patricia has been the hospital administrator for 15 years. We've known each other the whole time, though our relationship is strictly professional. She sees me as the reliable janitor who works night shifts without complaint. I see her as the person who signs off on my paychecks. "Janet, I need to talk to you about something sensitive," she said, closing her office door. My first thought was that I was being let go. 35 years of service ending because they wanted younger workers or cheaper labor. "I've been going through our donor records for the 50th anniversary gala," Patricia continued. "We're honoring our major contributors, and I've been trying to track down our largest anonymous donor. Someone who's given $11.5 million over 30 years. My chest tightened. The donations come through a trust, Drummond Family Foundation. I did some digging, Janet. Legal but thorough. And everything points back to you." She looked at me, waiting for confirmation. I said nothing. "Janet, is it you? Have you been our anonymous donor all these years?" I could have lied. Could have denied it. Could have bought myself more time. But I was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of being invisible. Tired of watching my daughter walk away from me like I was nothing. "Yes," I said simply. "It's me." Patricia's face went through several expressions: shock, confusion, disbelief. "How?" "Janet, no offense, but your salary is $35,000 a year. Even over 35 years, that's not. I have rental properties, real estate investments, inherited from my grandmother, built over time. I live simply and donate the rest." She sat back in her chair. My God, the pediatric wing, the cancer center, the scholarship fund. "That's all you?" "Yes." "Does anyone know? Your family?" "No." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then, "Janet, we're announcing the anonymous donor's identity at the gala in 2 weeks. I need your permission, or we can keep it anonymous if you prefer." I thought about Kimberly, about Ryan, about walking past me in hallways, avoiding me at Christmas, keeping my grandson away like I was contagious. I thought about 35 years of being invisible. "Announce it," I said. It's time they knew. The gala was scheduled for Saturday night, October 12th, 2 weeks away. In those 14 days, I tried to prepare myself for what would happen. Tried to imagine Kimberly's face when she heard my name announced. Tried to script the conversation we'd have afterward. In every version I imagined, she'd be shocked, grateful, apologetic. She'd realize her mistake. She'd bring Elijah to meet me. We'd start over. But there was another voice in my head. A quieter, darker voice that sounded like Thomas. "Janet, what are you doing? This isn't about making her see you. This is about making yourself feel important." I pushed that voice away, told myself this was different. This was about truth. About finally being acknowledged for what I'd built. On Tuesday, October 1st, I ran into Kimberly at the hospital. It was 6 a.m. I was finishing my night shift, emptying the trash in the doctor's lounge. She came in for coffee before her morning rounds. She saw me, hesitated, then continued to the coffee maker like I wasn't there. "Good morning, Kimberly," I said. "Morning." She didn't look at me. Poured her coffee, added cream, stirred slowly. The silence stretched between us like a wound. "How's Elijah?" "He's fine. I saw his birthday photos on Facebook. He's getting so big." Still not looking at me. Still treating me like I was part of the furniture. Part of the background scenery that keeps hospitals running but doesn't deserve acknowledgement. "Kimberly, I was wondering if maybe sometime I could—" "Mom, I have rounds in 10 minutes. I really can't do this right now." "Can't do what?" "Have a conversation with your mother?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, but there was something else there too. Something cold. "What do you want from me?" "I want to see my grandson. I want to be part of your life. You made your choices, Mom. You chose work over Dad. Over me. Don't act surprised that I'm choosing my family over you now." "Kimberly, that's not fair." "Isn't it? Dad was dying, and you were working double shifts. Do you know how many times he asked for you? How many times I had to tell him you couldn't leave work? He died thinking his job was more important to you than he was." The words hit like physical blows. "That's not true. I loved your father. You loved your work more. You loved your properties, your investments, your whole empire more than you loved us. And now you want access to my son? Why? So, you can be an absent grandmother the way you were an absent mother?" She left before I could respond. I stood alone in the doctor's lounge, surrounded by the smell of bleach and coffee, feeling the weight of her words. Because she was right. About all of it. I had chosen work over Thomas. I had prioritized buildings over my husband's life. And now, I was trying to force my way into Elijah's life, trying to be the grandmother I'd never learned to be a mother. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about choices. About the moment in 1995 when I decided to keep my grandmother's properties instead of selling them. About every property I bought afterward. Every donation I made. Every hour I worked while Thomas raised Kimberly alone. Every double shift I picked up while Thomas lay dying. I told myself it was all for them, for their future, for building something that would matter. But Thomas was dead, and Kimberly hated me, so what exactly had I built? On Friday, October 4th, Dr. Henderson sent out the gala program to all staff. It included a special section about the anonymous donor. For 30 years, one generous soul has given $11.5 million to Memorial Hospital. This Saturday, we'll finally honor them publicly. Their contributions have saved countless lives, funded groundbreaking research, and built the pediatric wing that serves 10,000 children annually. I saw Kimberly reading it in the hallway. Saw her smile, probably thinking about the scholarship that paid for her medical school, probably grateful to this mysterious donor, probably never imagining it was the janitor she was too embarrassed to acknowledge. Ryan was excited too. I overheard him talking to another surgeon. Finally going to meet the person who funded my research. $360,000 is career-changing money. Whoever they are, they're a legend. A legend. The janitor who smelled like disinfectant was a legend, and he had no idea. On Wednesday, October 9th, 3 days before the gala, my sister Patricia called. "Janet, I need to ask you something. Is it true? Are you really the anonymous donor? How did you know? Junior saw the donor records. He does IT work at the hospital. Saw your name. Janet, $11. 5 million? Where did you get that kind of money? I explained about the properties, the investments, the 35 years of building wealth. Patricia was quiet for a long time. Janet, does Kimberly know? She will on Saturday. And you think this is going to fix things between you? I think she deserves to know the truth. The truth about what? That you had millions while Thomas was dying? That you funded her education but couldn't take time off to save her father? Janet, this isn't going to make her grateful. This is going to make her hate you more. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're about to publicly humiliate your daughter. She's going to find out in front of 300 people that her mother, the janitor she's been avoiding, is actually a secret millionaire. And then she's going to ask herself why you let her father die if you had that kind of money. And you know what? She's not going to like the answer. Patricia hung up. I sat with her words, knowing she was right, knowing that Saturday night wasn't going to be the redemption I'd imagined. It was going to be a reckoning. And I wasn't ready for it. But it was too late to stop it. The invitations were sent. The program was printed. In 3 days, everyone would know. In 3 days, I'd lose my daughter forever. Saturday, October 12th, arrived cold and gray. I woke up at 5 a.m., couldn't go back to sleep. The gala started at 7 p.m., 14 hours to wait, 14 hours to second-guess everything. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, looked at the photo of Thomas I kept on the counter, him at 50, smiling, a year before the diagnosis, before I killed him with my delays. What would you tell me to do? I asked his picture, but I knew the answer. Thomas would tell me to call it off, to talk to Kimberly privately, to choose relationship over recognition. But Thomas had been telling me that for 35 years, and I'd never listened. Why start now? At noon, Patricia called again. Janet, last chance. You can still tell Dr. Henderson you want to remain anonymous. No one has to know. They're printing my name in the program. Programs can be changed. Janet, please, think about what you're doing. I've thought about nothing else for 2 weeks. Then think about Elijah. When Kimberly cuts you off after tonight, and she will, you'll never see that boy. Is your ego worth losing your grandson? I hung up without answering because I didn't have an answer. Was it worth it? I'd spent 30 years being invisible, funding a hospital that employed my daughter while she pretended I didn't exist. Didn't I deserve to be seen? Didn't I deserve acknowledgement? But that voice that sounded like Thomas whispered back, "You deserve what you've earned. And you've earned exactly this: distance, resentment, loss." At 4 p.m., I started getting ready. I'd bought a new dress for the occasion. Black, elegant, appropriate for a donor recognition gala. I did my hair, put on makeup I rarely wore, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like someone who mattered, someone important, someone who'd given $11.5 million to save lives. I also looked like someone trying desperately to be something other than what I was. A 9-year-old janitor playing dress-up, pretending money could buy respect. At 6 p.m., I drove to the hospital. The gala was being held in the main conference center, a space I'd cleaned hundreds of times but never attended an event in. I parked in the visitor lot, not the employee lot where I usually parked. Tonight, I wasn't the janitor. Tonight, I was the guest of honor. The conference center was transformed. White tablecloths, flower centerpieces, a stage with a podium, and large screens showing images of the hospital's history. 300 people in formal wear, doctors and donors and board members, all people who walked past me every day without seeing me. I saw Kimberly immediately. She was standing near the bar with Ryan, both of them in elegant evening wear. She wore a navy dress that made her look professional and polished. Ryan was in a tailored suit, laughing at something another surgeon said. They looked perfect together. Successful. Important. Nothing like the janitor's daughter and her husband. Dr. Henderson spotted me at the entrance. "Janet, you made it. You look beautiful." She linked her arm through mine. "Come on, let me introduce you to some people before the program starts." "Patricia, maybe I should just—" "Nonsense. You're the guest of honor. People are going to want to meet you." She led me through the crowd, introducing me to board members and department heads, people who'd worked at the hospital for years without ever knowing my name. "This is Janet Drummond, our facilities worker and, as you'll learn tonight, our most generous donor." Their reactions were identical. Surprise, confusion, forced smiles. "Oh, how wonderful," they'd say, handshakes limp, already looking for an exit from the conversation. The janitor was the donor? How embarrassing for everyone. I saw Kimberly notice me across the room. Saw her face register confusion at seeing her mother in a dress, being introduced to important people. She said something to Ryan, who looked over, frowned. I watched them have a quick conversation, probably wondering why the janitor was at a donor gala. At 7:15 p.m., Dr. Henderson took the stage. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Memorial Hospital's 50th anniversary celebration. Tonight, we honor the donors who've made our work possible." She spoke about the hospital's history, its achievements, the lives saved. Then she shifted to the anonymous donor. For 30 years, one person has given selflessly, generously, transforming our hospital. They funded our pediatric wing, our cancer center, our scholarship programs, our research initiatives. $11.5 million in total. Tonight, we finally reveal their identity. I saw Kimberly lean forward, interested. Saw Ryan watch the stage intently. They had no idea that in 30 seconds, their world would shatter. Our anonymous donor is someone who's worked at Memorial Hospital for 35 years. Someone many of you see every day without truly seeing. Someone whose humility and service have defined both her professional life and her philanthropy. Kimberly's face was still curious, still innocent. Please join me in honoring Janet Drummond, our night shift facilities worker and Memorial Hospital's greatest benefactor. The room erupted in applause. Polite, surprised, uncomfortable applause. 300 people turning to look at me. 300 people trying to reconcile the janitor with the millionaire. But I only saw one person, Kimberly. Her face went through a series of changes. Confusion, realization, shock, horror. She stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to her lips, staring at me like I was a stranger. Ryan leaned close to her, said something. She shook her head, put down her glass, and then, as I watched, as 300 people applauded, my daughter walked out of the ballroom. Dr. Henderson was still talking, saying something about my contributions, about my generosity, about my legacy, but I wasn't listening. I was watching the door where Kimberly had disappeared. Patricia had been right. This wasn't redemption. This was destruction. And I'd done it to myself. The applause continued. People approached to shake my hand, to congratulate me, to express their surprise and admiration, but all I could think about was my daughter walking away. Again. Still. Forever. I'd wanted to be seen, and now I was, but I'd lost the only person whose sight actually mattered. I excused myself after 10 minutes of handshakes and hollow congratulations. Told Dr. Henderson I needed air. Found the exit. The October night was cold, the parking lot mostly empty, except for the valets and a few smokers from the gala. I walked past them, searching. I found Kimberly by her car, leaning against the driver's side door, arms crossed. Ryan stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder. They both turned when they heard my footsteps. "Kimberly, please, let me explain." "Explain what, exactly?" Her voice was ice. Explain how you've been sitting on millions while Dad died? Explain how you paid for my medical school and never told me? Explain how you funded Ryan's research like we were your charity cases? Ryan's face had gone hard. You funded my grants? The pediatric surgery research? Yes. $360,000 over 3 years. Jesus Christ, he stepped back from both of us. My entire career, everything I've accomplished. It's because the janitor felt sorry for me? That's not. Do people know? Kimberly cut me off. Do people at the hospital know you paid for my education? Only Dr. Henderson. The donations were anonymous. Were. Kimberly's laugh was bitter. Past tense. Now everyone knows. Now everyone at that gala knows that Dr. Kimberly Mitchell only got through medical school because her janitor mother secretly funded it. Do you have any idea what you've done to my credibility? I gave you an opportunity. You gave me charity. You made me a fraud. Everyone in there thinks I earned that scholarship through merit, through my grades, my MCAT scores, my hard work. But it was just you, pulling strings, buying my success. That's not fair, Kimberly. You did earn it. Your grades were excellent. I just made sure money wasn't an obstacle. You made sure I'd always be grateful, always be in your debt. Even after you killed Dad. Her voice broke on the last words. The accusation hung in the cold air between us. I didn't kill your father. Didn't you? He had stage 2 cancer, Mom. Treatable, curable. The doctor said if we started treatment immediately, he'd survive. But you said we had to wait. Do you remember why? Because you were closing on properties. Because you had donation commitments. Because your empire was more important than his life. The cancer was aggressive. It was stage 2. 8 months later, it was stage 4. 8 months you made him wait while you worked double shifts and managed properties and wrote checks to this hospital. 8 months that killed him. I had no defense because she was right. Every word was right. Ryan spoke quietly. The cancer center. The one named after an anonymous donor. That's for him, isn't it? For Thomas. Yes. How much did that cost? $1.5 million. Kimberly's laugh was ugly. You spent $1.5 million on a cancer center after you let cancer kill him. That's perfect. That's exactly who you are. Mom, you'll give millions to strangers, but you couldn't give Dad the one thing he needed. Time. Your time. Kimberly, I was trying to build something for you. For your future. I didn't need a future bought with Dad's life. I needed my father. I needed him at my graduation, at my wedding, to meet his grandson. But he's dead because you were too busy being important. A valet walked past, pretending not to listen. We were making a scene in a hospital parking lot. The janitor and the doctor, screaming about money and death. What do you want from me? I asked. What can I possibly do to fix this? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. You can't bring Dad back. You can't give me back the childhood you weren't present for. You can't undo the fact that my entire career is built on your guilt money. It wasn't guilt money. Then what was it? Love? You don't buy love, Mom. You can't donate your way into being a good mother. Ryan touched Kimberly's arm. Babe, we should go. This isn't. No. She shook him off. I need to say this. Mom, for 35 years you've been hiding behind that uniform. Poor Janet, the hard-working janitor. So humble, so selfless. But it was all performance. You weren't humble. You were playing a role, getting off on the secret, on knowing you were better than everyone thought. That's not true, isn't it? You could have told me years ago. Could have told Dad. Could have been honest about who you were and what you'd built. But you wanted the secret. You wanted to be underestimated so you could prove everyone wrong. Well, congratulations. You proved it. You're not just a janitor. You're a janitor with millions who let her husband die. She pulled her car keys from her purse. Don't contact me again. Don't call. Don't show up at the hospital. And don't you dare try to see Elijah. Kimberly, please. I mean it, Mom. You're done. You got your moment in there. You got your recognition. You got 300 people knowing you're secretly rich and generous. That's what you wanted, right? To be seen? I wanted you to see me. I see you perfectly. I've always seen you. You just didn't like what I saw. She got in the car. Ryan followed, slamming the passenger door. I stood there as the engine started, as the headlights came on, as they backed out of the parking space. Kimberly didn't look at me as they drove away. I walked back to my own car slowly. My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. How bad? I didn't respond. Couldn't find words to describe what I'd just lost. Inside the conference center, the gala continued. Through the windows, I could see people laughing, networking, celebrating me. The generous donor, the secret philanthropist, the woman who'd given $11.5 million to save lives, the woman who'd sacrificed her husband to do it, the woman who'd just lost her daughter, the woman standing alone in a parking lot in an expensive dress, realizing she'd bought everything except what mattered. I drove home, changed out of the dress, sat in my living room in the dark. At 11 p.m., my phone rang. Patricia. She called me, Patricia said. Kimberly. She's devastated, Janet. Not just angry. Destroyed. I know. She asked me if I knew. About the money. I told her I just found out. She didn't believe me. Said the whole family probably knew. Said everyone's been laughing at her behind her back. That's not. It doesn't matter what's true, Janet. It matters what she believes. And she believes you've humiliated her, made her look like a fraud who only succeeded because of Mommy's money. Patricia, what do I do? Nothing. You leave her alone. You give her space. And you pray that someday, maybe, she'll be willing to talk to you again. How long? I don't know. Years, maybe. Or never. Never. The words sat in my chest like a stone. After we hung up, I walked to my bedroom, opened the closet. On the top shelf was a box of Thomas's things. His watch, his wallet, his journal from the last year of his life. I'd never been able to read it, too afraid of what I'd find. Tonight, I opened it. The journal was a simple black notebook, the kind they sell at drugstores for $3. Thomas's handwriting filled every page, neat and careful like everything he did. The first entry was dated January 15th, 2018, 2 weeks after his diagnosis. Doctor says stage 2. Treatable if we act fast. Janet says we need to wait a few months. She has property deals closing, donation commitments. I told her, okay. She works so hard. I don't want to add stress, but I'm scared. I turned the page, hands shaking. March 3rd, 2018. Pain is worse. Asked Janet again about starting treatment. She said soon, just a few more weeks. She's closing on a duplex on Morgan Street. Says the rental income will fund Kimberly's future. I didn't tell her Kimberly's future doesn't need another duplex. It needs her father alive. The entries continued. Month after month, Thomas documenting his symptoms, his fear, his pain, and my excuses. May 20th, 2018. Janet working double shifts this week. Says the hospital needs her for some big cleaning project. I wanted to tell her I need her more, but she looked so tired, so I said nothing. July 8th, 2018. Doctor called with test results. Cancer has spread. Stage 3 now. Asked when we could start treatment. I told him soon. He said, Thomas, soon might be too late. I know. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see through the tears. But I kept reading. September 30th, 2018. Started treatment today. Janet came to first appointment. Left halfway through for a property inspection. Kimberly stayed. She held my hand during the infusion. My daughter shouldn't have to do this alone. But Janet says the property won't wait. The cancer will. November 12, 2018. Stage 4. Doctor says treatment is palliative now, not curative. Means I'm dying. Means the 8 months we waited turned treatable into terminal. I asked Janet why we waited. She said she didn't know it would spread so fast. But the doctor told us. On day 1, he told us early treatment was critical. We knew. She just didn't want to know. January 4th, 2019. Kimberly moved back home to help. She's 27, should be focused on her career, but instead she's changing my bandages and managing my medications. Janet's still working nights, still managing properties. I heard her on the phone yesterday talking about another donation to the hospital, $500,000 this time. $500,000 to the hospital while I die from the disease she wouldn't make time to treat. I had to put the journal down. Went to the bathroom, vomited. Came back, kept reading. I owed Thomas that much. To witness what I'd done to him. March 19th, 2019. Bad day. Pain is unbearable. Kimberly called Janet at work, begged her to come home. Janet said she couldn't leave her shift. I heard Kimberly crying after she hung up. My daughter crying because her mother won't come home to say goodbye to her dying husband. June 2nd, 2019. I think about the life we could have had if Janet had been present, if she'd chosen us over the buildings, the donations, the secret empire. I'm proud of what she built, but I'd trade every property, every dollar, every donation to have had my wife beside me these last 35 years. August 30th, 2019. Ask Janet what happens to all the money when I'm gone. She said it's for Kimberly's future. I told her Kimberly doesn't need money. She needs her mother. Janet looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. After 35 years, she still doesn't understand. You can't buy back time. You can't donate your way into love. The final entry was dated October 15th, 2020, 3 days before Thomas died. I'm not angry anymore, just sad. Sad for Janet, who's going to wake up one day and realize she spent her whole life building an empire for people who didn't want it. Sad for Kimberly, who's going to carry resentment toward her mother for the rest of her life. Sad for me, dying in a hospital Janet funded, being treated by doctors she paid, sleeping in a bed she bought with money she earned abandoning us. I forgive her, not because she deserves it, because I'm too tired to hold grudges. But forgiveness isn't the same as absolution. She'll have to live with what she chose, every property she bought with the time she didn't spend with me, every donation she made with the money she didn't spend on my treatment, every recognition she receives from strangers who don't know what it cost. My last wish is this, that somehow, someday, Kimberly finds peace, that she doesn't become her mother, that she learns the lesson Janet never did. That being present is worth more than any legacy. That love requires time, not money. That you can't build a relationship on donations and guilt. Tell Kimberly I love her. Tell her to forgive her mother if she can, not for Janet's sake, but for her own. Tell her to hold Elijah close and never, ever choose work over family. And Janet, if you're reading this after I'm gone, know that I loved you every day, even when you weren't there, especially when you weren't there. I just wish you'd loved me more than your empire. The journal ended there. The last pages were blank. I sat with it in my lap, reading that final entry over and over. Thomas had forgiven me, but he'd also seen me clearly, seen what I was going to lose, tried to warn me, and I'd proven him right. Everything he'd predicted had come true. Kimberly hated me. My empire stood empty of meaning. My recognition felt hollow. I'd built a legacy that no one wanted. At 2 a.m., I called Patricia. I read Thomas's journal. Janet, it's the middle of the night. He knew. He knew I was killing him and he forgave me anyway. He died forgiving me for choosing properties over his life. Patricia was quiet. Then, softly, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." He asked me to tell Kimberly something. That he loved her. That she should forgive me if she can. "Janet, you can't contact her. You heard what she said." "I know, but he asked me to. In his last entry, he wanted her to know." "Then write her a letter. Don't call, don't show up. Write it down. Whether she reads it or not is up to her." I spent the rest of the night writing. 4 pages, front and back. Everything I should have said years ago. Everything I'd hidden behind work and donations and guilt. I told her about Thomas's journal, about his forgiveness, about his final wish that she not become me. I ended with the only truth that mattered. I can't undo what I've done. I can't bring your father back. I can't give you the mother you deserved, but I can stop pretending my donations made up for my absence. They didn't. They never could. I chose wrong. Every day for 35 years, I chose wrong. And now I have to live with that. I mailed the letter Sunday morning. Didn't know if she'd read it. Didn't know if it would matter. All I knew was that Thomas had been right about everything, and I'd lost everything that mattered learning it. 3 weeks passed, with no response from Kimberly. I went to work every night, cleaned the same floors, emptied the same trash cans, but everything felt different. The doctors who used to ignore me now tried to make awkward small talk. That was quite a revelation at the gala. "You're so generous. We had no idea." Their attempts at friendliness felt worse than being invisible. They saw me now, but they saw a curiosity. The janitor with millions, the anomaly, the woman who didn't fit their categories. Kimberly changed her schedule to avoid me. I knew because I checked. She used to do morning rounds starting at 6 a.m., right when I finished my shift. Now she started at 7:30, after I was gone. The one time I accidentally saw her in the parking lot, she turned and walked the opposite direction. Ryan was more direct. I ran into him in the hallway outside the surgical wing. He stopped when he saw me. Face cold. "Mrs. Drummond." "Ryan, please. Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. You funded my research without my knowledge or consent. You made my career achievements into charity. Every paper I've published, every surgery I've performed, people will wonder if I earned it or if the janitor bought it for me. That's not fair. You earned everything through your skill. Did I? Or did I get opportunities other surgeons didn't because you were pulling strings behind the scenes?" I never pulled strings. I donated to research funds. The hospital decided which projects to fund based on merit. Right. And it's just coincidence that your son-in-law got $360,000? You expect me to believe Dr. Henderson didn't know we were related when she approved my grants? I had no answer because I didn't know. Had Patricia Henderson connected the dots? Had she given Ryan preferential treatment because of me? I'd never asked. Never wanted to know. "I've requested a full audit of my grants," Ryan continued. "If there's any evidence of preferential treatment, I'm returning the money and withdrawing my research. I'd rather fail on my own merit than succeed on your guilt." He walked away before I could respond. That night, I cleaned the surgical wing where Ryan worked, saw his name on the board, listing procedures for the next day, saw the pediatric surgery schedule that his research had improved, saw the lives he'd saved, the techniques he'd developed, the careers he'd influenced. All of it now tainted in his mind. All of it suspect because of me. On November 3rd, 4 weeks after the gala, I got an email from Dr. Henderson requesting a meeting. I went to her office during my lunch break, still in my work uniform. "Janet, thank you for coming. I'll get straight to the point. We have a situation." My stomach tightened. "What kind of situation?" "Several staff members have filed complaints. Not about your work, about the donations. They're questioning whether other hospital decisions were influenced by your financial contributions. What decisions? Hiring decisions. Promotions. Dr. Mitchell's position here, for instance. She was hired 6 years ago, right out of residency. Usually we require more experience for attending physician roles. People are asking if your donations influenced that hiring. I had nothing to do with Kimberly's hiring. I didn't even know she'd applied here until after she got the job. I believe you, but perception matters. The board is concerned about the appearance of impropriety. They're requesting that you take a voluntary leave of absence while we conduct an internal review. A leave of absence? For how long? 30 days, maybe 60. Just until we can demonstrate that your employment and your donations were kept completely separate. Are you firing me? No. This is paid leave. You'll receive full salary. But Janet, I have to be honest. The board is also discussing whether it's appropriate for a major donor to work in a facilities role. There are concerns about optics. Optics? You mean it's embarrassing to have a janitor who's donated more than most board members? Patricia looked uncomfortable. That's not how I'd phrase it, but yes. Some board members feel it sends a confused message. What message is that? That working-class people can be successful? That you don't have to be a doctor or lawyer to make a difference? Janet, I understand your frustration, but this is coming from above me. I'm trying to find a path forward that protects both you and the hospital. What if I don't want to take a leave? Then the board may vote to terminate your employment. And given the current situation with Dr. Mitchell, that might actually be preferable for everyone. I understood. They wanted me gone. The inspiring story had become an embarrassing problem. The generous donor was now a complication. I'll take the leave, I said. That night, I cleaned my last shift, walked the familiar halls, emptied the familiar trash cans, said goodbye to no one. At 6 a.m., I turned in my uniform, my badge, my keys. 35 years of service, ending with a paid leave that we both knew was permanent. I drove home as the sun rose. Sat in my apartment surrounded by silence. No job to go to, no daughter to call, no husband to talk to, just me and the empire I'd built that had cost me everything. 2 months after the gala, on a cold December morning, I received a certified letter. Return address: Mitchell and Chen, with Kimberly and Ryan's home address. My hands shook opening it. Inside was a single page, typed, formal, legal language. Cease and desist from any contact with Kimberly Mitchell, Ryan Chen, or Elijah Mitchell. This includes, but is not limited to, phone calls, emails, text messages, letters, in-person visits, contact through third parties, and presence at Memorial Hospital during hours when Dr. Mitchell is working. At the bottom, both their signatures. My daughter's name, neat and professional. The same signature she'd practiced as a child, pretending to sign important doctor documents. I called Patricia immediately. She sent me a cease and desist letter. Can she do this? It's not legally binding unless you violate it and they pursue a restraining order. But Janet, if she's gone this far, you need to respect it. She's my daughter. Elijah is my grandson. I have rights. You have no rights to a grandchild. Not legally. If Kimberly wants to keep Elijah away from you, she can, and if you push this, she'll get a restraining order that actually has legal teeth. After we hung up, I sat with the letter for hours, read it over and over. The formal language, the legal threat, the absolute rejection. This was how we ended. Not with conversation or reconciliation, with a legal document demanding I stay away. On December 20th, Patricia called with news. Junior told me something. Kimberly and Ryan are leaving Memorial Hospital. They've accepted positions in Seattle. They're moving after Christmas. Seattle? That's across the country. That's the point, Janet. They're putting 2,000 miles between you and them. Kimberly told Junior she can't work at a hospital where everyone knows her mother is the secret donor. where every achievement will be questioned, where she'll always be the janitor's daughter who got special treatment. I never gave her special treatment. It doesn't matter. That's how she feels. And Seattle is a fresh start, a place where no one knows about you or your money. When do they leave? January 15th. I had less than a month. Less than a month before my daughter moved across the country with my grandson I'd never met. Less than a month before 2,000 miles became permanent separation. On Christmas Eve, I drove past Kimberly's house. I know I shouldn't have. The cease and desist letter was clear, but I needed to see them. Just once. Just to know they were real. Their house was decorated for Christmas. Lights on the roof, wreath on the door, tree visible through the front window. I parked down the street, engine off, watching. At 6 p.m., the door opened. Ryan came out carrying Elijah, bundled in a winter coat. The boy was bigger than in the photos. 3 years old, talking, pointing at the Christmas lights. Kimberly followed, locking the door. She was laughing at something Ryan said. They looked happy, complete, a family. They loaded into the car, Elijah in his car seat chattering away. They backed out of the driveway and drove past me. I slouched down so they wouldn't see. Elijah's face passed 3 feet from mine. My grandson. Thomas's grandson. The child I'd never hold. He was singing something, hands waving. Ryan was singing along. Kimberly was smiling in the passenger seat. They were fine without me. Better, maybe. Free from the complicated history, the guilt, the weight of my choices. I was the problem they were solving by moving to Seattle. I drove home through empty streets. Chicago at Christmas, decorated and cold. I'd spent 35 Christmases working, building, donating. This was my first Christmas with nothing to do. No job, no family, no purpose. On January 10th, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Ryan. Kimberly doesn't know I'm contacting you. We're leaving for Seattle in 5 days. She read your letter. The one about Thomas's journal. She cried for 3 days. But it didn't change her mind. I thought you should know that. She knows you're sorry. She knows Thomas forgave you. But she can't. Maybe someday. But not now. Don't try to contact us in Seattle. Let her heal. That's the last thing you can give her. Space to heal from you. I replied, tell her I love her. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. On January 15th, I didn't go to the airport. Didn't drive past their house one last time. Didn't break the cease and desist. I stayed home, looking at old photos. Kimberly as a baby. Kimberly starting school. Kimberly graduating college. All the moments Thomas had been there for while I was working. That night, I got one final text from Patricia. They're gone. Flight left at 2 p.m. Junior said Elijah was excited about the airplane. Kimberly looked relieved. Relieved. My daughter was relieved to be 2,000 miles away from me. I sat in my apartment, 59 years old, alone. Outside my window, Chicago continued. Inside, everything had stopped. I'd built an empire worth millions. Donated $11.5 million to save lives. Funded scholarships, research, entire hospital wings. And I'd lost everything that mattered. Thomas was right. You can't buy back time. You can't donate your way into love. All you can do is live with the choices you made. And I would live with mine for whatever time I had left. Alone. 2 years passed. I never returned to Memorial Hospital. The temporary leave became permanent retirement. They sent a plaque thanking me for 35 years of service. It sits in a closet, still in the box. The hospital named a garden after me, the Janet Drummond Memorial Garden, outside the pediatric wing I'd funded. Patricia sent photos. Beautiful flowers, stone benches, a plaque explaining I was a longtime employee and generous donor. They made it sound noble. They didn't mention I'd sacrificed my husband to pay for it. I sold most of my properties, kept 2, enough to live on, donated the rest of the money. Not to Memorial Hospital, to organizations that help families afford cancer treatment. $2.8 million total. Anonymous, of course. I'd learned my lesson about public recognition. Patricia called occasionally with updates. Kimberly had been promoted to head of pediatrics in Seattle. Ryan published groundbreaking research and won awards. Elijah started kindergarten. They seemed happy, settled, free. Has she ever asked about me? I asked Patricia once. Long silence. No, Janet. I'm sorry. On June 3, 2027, I went to the doctor for routine blood work. Felt fine, no symptoms, just a checkup. The doctor called a week later asking me to come in. That's never good news. Janet, your tests show some concerning markers. We need to do more imaging, but I'm seeing indicators consistent with early-stage dementia. Possibly Alzheimer's. I was 61 years old, early onset. The same disease that had taken my mother at 68. I'd watched her forget her own name, forget her children, forget everything that made her who she was. How long do I have before I forget? It's hard to say. Could be 5 years, could be 10. But Janet, you need to start making arrangements. Legal documents, care plans, notifying family. Family. I had no family. Not anymore. I called Patricia that night. Told her about the diagnosis, she cried. I didn't. You need to tell Kimberly, she said. Why? So she can feel obligated? So she can come back out of guilt? So she doesn't find out when you're already gone? So she has a choice. She made her choice 2 years ago. I'm respecting it. But 3 weeks later, when the diagnosis was confirmed and the neurologist gave me a timeline of 18 months to 2 years before significant memory loss, I broke down, called Patricia sobbing. I'm going to forget him. I'm going to forget Thomas, his face, his voice, everything. And I'll forget Kimberly. I'll forget I even have a daughter. I'll forget why I'm alone. Then write it down. Write everything you want to remember. Write it for yourself, for when you can't remember anymore. So I did. I spent 3 months writing. Everything. My life with Thomas. Building the empire. The choices I made. His cancer. His death. His journal. Kimberly's childhood. The gala. The cease and desist. Seattle. All of it. I wrote what I wished I'd said to Kimberly. I chose wrong. Every single day, I chose empire over family, recognition over presence, legacy over love. And by the time I understood what I'd lost, it was too late to get it back. You were right to leave, right to protect your son from me. I would have taught him the same poisonous lesson I learned. That success means sacrifice, that love can wait, that being important matters more than being present. You broke that cycle. I'm proud of you for that, even if I can't tell you. I sealed the pages in an envelope marked, "For Kimberly if she wants it someday." On November 3, 2027, 3 years after the gala, I moved into an assisted living facility. Not because I needed help yet, but because I knew I would. The dementia was progressing faster than expected. I'd forget appointments, forget if I'd eaten. Stand in my kitchen unable to remember why I was there. The facility was nice, expensive. I could afford it. I could afford anything except what I actually wanted. Patricia visited once a month. Brought photos of Elijah she found on Kimberly's Facebook. He was 6 now, starting 1st grade. Looked like Thomas. Had his smile. Does Kimberly know I'm sick? I asked during one visit. Junior told her. She didn't respond. That's her right. By spring 2028, I was forgetting more than I remembered. The staff had to remind me to eat. I'd introduce myself to Patricia every visit like we were meeting for the first time. But I could still remember Thomas. Still see his face. Still hear his voice reading from that journal. On July 12, 2028, I woke up and couldn't remember where I was, couldn't remember my name. The nurse showed me my ID bracelet. "You're Janet Drummond. You're in a care facility. You're safe." "Do I have family?" The nurse checked my file. "It says here you have a daughter, Kimberly. She lives in Seattle. Does she visit?" "No, honey. She doesn't visit." "Why not?" "I don't know." I forgot that conversation an hour later. Asked again the next day. Got the same answer. By August, I stopped asking. Patricia visited in September. I didn't recognize her. She cried. I asked why she was sad. She showed me photos. "This is you at 30. This is your husband, Thomas. This is your daughter, Kimberly." I studied the photos. The woman in the pictures looked familiar, but I couldn't remember her story. "Was I a good mother?" I asked. Patricia's face crumpled. "You tried to be." "That's not the same thing, is it?" "No, honey, it's not." On October 12, 2028, exactly 4 years after the gala, I died in my sleep, peacefully, the staff said. I was 62 years old. Patricia handled the arrangements. Small funeral, no service, just burial next to Thomas. She sent one final message to Kimberly. "Your mother passed away. She left a letter for you. I'll mail it if you want it. If not, I'll understand." 2 weeks later, Patricia received a response, "Don't send it." I said everything I needed to say 3 years ago. I hope she found peace. Patricia burned the letter I'd written. She said it felt like the right thing to do, like letting me rest. My estate, what was left of it, went to cancer treatment charities, anonymous donations, $1.2 million, helping families afford the treatment I'd denied Thomas. The Janet Drummond Memorial Garden still stands at Memorial Hospital. People sit there every day, enjoying the flowers, reading on the benches, never knowing what it cost. Sometimes the janitor owns the building. Sometimes the janitor saves the hospital. Sometimes the janitor gives everything to strangers and loses everything that matters. That is Janet Drummond's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these powerful stories about family, sacrifice, and the true cost of success. Real question. If you were Janet, what would you have done? Would you have revealed your secret donations at the gala? Would you have told Kimberly privately about the money? Or would you have stayed anonymous forever and just tried to rebuild the relationship quietly? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone who's ever chosen career over family. Someone who's worked themselves to exhaustion trying to provide a better life. Someone who learned too late that being present matters more than being successful. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about absent parents, the weight of guilt, complicated mother-daughter relationships, and what happens when you sacrifice everything for success only to realize you've lost what matters most. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the most generous people are the loneliest. Sometimes the biggest donors are the worst parents. Sometimes you can save the world and lose your family. And sometimes by the time you understand what you've lost, it's too late to get it back. See you in the next video.